Make my favorite dish and I'll marry you. Those were the arrogant words that came out of the millionaire CEO's mouth, right in front of his entire kitchen staff. And the woman he mocked? She wasn't even a chef. She was the cleaning lady, a single mother who scrubbed his floors just to feed her son. When he laughed at her and tossed that challenge like a joke, she picked up a pan and took it literally. What happened next didn't just silence an entire restaurant, it exposed a secret his family had buried for decades. That night, in a storm-soaked New York kitchen, a dish seasoned with truth, memory, and revenge would change both of their lives forever. Because sometimes the taste of justice is stronger than the flavor of love. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The clatter of metal filled the kitchen like thunder trapped in chrome. Steam coiled around the lamps, tasting of garlic and pride. Emily froze mid-motion, holding a frying pan that felt heavier than her whole life. Across the counter stood Michael Carter, the arrogant millionaire CEO who owned the restaurant and half the city's skyline. His suit was too clean for a place that smelled of sweat and butter. His words cut through the noise. "Make my favorite dish," he said, smiling like it was a game. "And I'll marry you." Laughter rippled through the staff. She wasn't a chef. She was the cleaning lady, the one who mopped their mess after service. Her hands still smelled of bleach, but something in his tone, sharp, dismissive, almost cruel, ignited a quiet defiance in her chest. She straightened her back. "You think everything's a joke," she murmured. Michael tilted his head, amused. "If you can't handle pressure, step aside. I'll call someone qualified." The kitchen fell silent. The hum of the refrigerators, the hiss of oil, the ticking clock, all seemed to wait for her next breath. Emily saw the smirk in his eyes, saw how sure he was that she'd back down. But behind her calm face was a storm of unpaid bills, a hungry child at home, a heart stitched together by survival. Single mother wasn't on her resume, but it was written in the way she refused to break. She turned to the counter, her voice barely above the sizzle. "What's the dish?" Michael's smirk deepened. "It's not on the menu," he said. "That's what makes it mine." A few cooks exchanged glances, whispering that the boss was testing her. Emily closed her eyes for 1 second. She pictured her mother's old kitchen in Queens, the smell of lemon and butter drifting through a window cracked for the summer breeze. She remembered a plate, branzino, fennel, capers, a taste like forgiveness. Without a word, she began, knife strokes crisp, clean, certain. Garlic hit the oil, the scent bloomed like courage. The line cook stopped pretending to work. Even Michael's smile faltered when he saw her move with grace that didn't belong to a janitor. She plated the fish in silence, golden skin, sauce shimmering with lemon and memory. Michael stepped closer, his shadow crossing the plate. "That's familiar," he said quietly, almost to himself. Emily met his gaze. "It should be." He tasted. The room held its breath. For a heartbeat, something flickered behind his eyes, confusion, maybe recognition. Then he straightened his tie, masking it with indifference. "Anyone could have made that," he said. Emily's reply came soft but steady. "Not anyone who didn't know her." The moment shattered when a courier burst through the door, rain dripping from his jacket. He held a thick envelope marked "Contract" and said, "Mr. Carter, urgent delivery from the law office." The sound of thunder rolled outside, like the world itself waiting to hear what would happen next. The courier's shoes left wet footprints across the tile as he handed the envelope to Michael. The air in the kitchen felt thicker now, like even the steam had stopped to listen. Michael slit it open, scanning the document with a shift in his jawline that betrayed something colder than arrogance. Emily wiped her hands on her apron, her eyes flicking to him, uncertain whether she'd crossed a line or stepped into one. He looked up at her, the corner of his mouth tight. "You can go back to cleaning now," he said quietly, too calm to be kind. But before she could answer, a voice came from the far end of the kitchen, a soft-spoken hostess, trembling. "Mr. Carter, they're waiting for you in the private dining room. The investors." Investors, of course. The millionaire CEO who promised the world over dinner, but never stayed long enough for dessert. He walked past Emily, his cologne trailing like a closing door. Yet, just before stepping out, he stopped. His tone dropped low. only for her. "That dish," he said. "Where did you learn it?" Her hand tightened around the towel at her waist. "From my mother," she replied. "She used to cook it when she wanted to remind someone they were still human." Michael's eyes darkened, not angry, but shaken. Then he left. The kitchen exhaled in whispers. The pastry chef muttered, "Girl, what did you just do?" Emily didn't answer. She stared at the empty doorway, the echo of his question still pulsing in her chest. That dish, how could he recognize it? She hadn't cooked it in years, not since the night everything fell apart, not since the fire. She moved to the sink and turned on the faucet just to drown the noise of her thoughts. But as she scrubbed a pot that didn't need scrubbing, her reflection on the steel wall seemed to whisper, "He knows." Meanwhile, inside the private dining room, Michael tried to focus on the numbers, contracts, margins, promises, but every flavor of that dish haunted him. Fennel, lemon, a memory buried under ambition. His assistant spoke, but the words blurred. That taste. It belonged to a woman he'd once loved and lost to time. A secret he'd sealed under success. When he finally looked down at the document the courier brought, his pulse stuttered. It wasn't just a contract, it was a claim. A lawsuit against his company, filed by someone named Emily Ward. He blinked. The same name written on the cleaning schedule taped in the kitchen. He rose abruptly, chair scraping the marble. "Cancel dessert," he said, his voice low, unfamiliar. Back in the kitchen, Emily was gathering her bag to leave when the door swung open again. He stood there, rain dripping from his cuffs, the paper in his hand trembling slightly, not from anger but disbelief. "Who are you really?" Michael asked. Emily froze. The noise of the kitchen melted away, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat and the steady drip of rain from his sleeve onto the tile, each drop counting down to a truth she'd tried to bury. The rain outside grew heavier, a steady rhythm against the glass, like the ticking of a decision waiting to happen. The fluorescent light hummed above them as Michael's question hung in the air. "Who are you really?" Emily set her bag down slowly, her fingers trembling slightly. The cooks pretended to keep working, but everyone's eyes flicked toward the confrontation unfolding by the door. "I clean your floors, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady but her throat dry. "That's all you need to know." Michael stepped closer, holding up the paper as if it were a weapon. "Then why is your name on a legal claim against me?" A whisper rippled through the kitchen. The sous chef turned down the stove flame just to hear better. Emily's eyes flickered to the document, then back to his face, unreadable, controlled, the face of a man used to winning. "Maybe you should ask your lawyers," she said softly, "why they kept things hidden from you." Michael's jaw flexed. He lowered his voice, rough and tight. "Don't play games with me. I don't forget faces. Or names." Emily gave a faint, humorless laugh. "You forgot one." For a heartbeat, his confidence cracked. That look, the shadow of recognition, flared in his eyes. "What did you just say?" She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the pan she'd used earlier and began scrubbing it as if the motion could erase what had just happened. The steel groaned under her grip. Michael's voice softened, almost against his will. "That dish. My mother used to make it when I was a kid. Nobody knew that. Not even my chefs. How did you—" Emily turned, her eyes bright and wet. "Because she taught my mother too." The words fell like a match in a room soaked with gasoline. Silence swallowed the kitchen. Michael blinked, confusion battling disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Emily exhaled slowly, as if each word weighed a lifetime. "Your mother and mine worked together in a small bistro in Queens before you had your first restaurant, before the money, before the suits." "My mother? She was the one who kept that place alive while your family built their empire, until the night the fire took everything." Michael's face drained of color. "The fire," he hesitated, a tremor in his voice. "You were there?" "I was a child," she said, "and she never stopped blaming herself for what happened to your mother. She died believing she failed her friend, and I grew up cleaning kitchens she once ruled." The paper in his hand crumpled. His usual calm fractured into something raw. "Why file a lawsuit then? Revenge?" Emily shook her head. "Justice," she whispered, "for what your father took from her. From us." For a long moment, Only the sound of rain filled the room. Michael's expression hardened again. Not from anger this time, but from a truth he didn't want to believe. He finally turned toward the door. "Finish your shift," he said, his voice low. "We'll talk tomorrow." Then he left, leaving behind the contract, the silence, and a smell of rain that somehow carried both guilt and memory. Emily looked down at the paper, her name printed next to his in cold black ink, Carter vs. Ward, and whispered to herself, tomorrow might be too late. That night, New York shimmered in rain and neon. Emily rode the subway home with the contract folded in her coat pocket, the paper heavy as stone. The city light streaked past her reflection on the train window, two Emilys staring back at each other, one who scrubbed dishes for survival, and another who'd finally decided to stop hiding. When she reached her small apartment in Queens, the hallway smelled of old paint and takeout. Her son Jacob was asleep on the couch under a blanket, printed with superheroes. A half-finished science project sat on the table beside cold spaghetti. She touched his hair gently, careful not to wake him. Then she sat down, opened the contract, and read by the dim light of a flickering lamp. It wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a truth buried under legal terms. The Carter Group had bought out her mother's old restaurant 20 years ago, promising compensation after the fire. None of it had ever come. The papers proved it. Unpaid settlements, signatures forged, her mother's name erased. Michael's father had rewritten history, and the empire his son inherited was built on silence. Emily pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting the mix of anger and grief that rose like smoke. For years she'd worked under their brand name, cleaning their kitchens, believing it was coincidence. But fate had dragged her back inside the same walls, this time not as a victim but as a witness. Outside, thunder rolled across the city like an echo of her thoughts. She walked to the window, watching cars slice through puddles, and whispered to the dark, "Mom, I'm doing it for you." Meanwhile, high above Manhattan, Michael sat alone in his penthouse office, staring at the same set of papers. His lawyers had confirmed what Emily implied. The fire that destroyed that small Queens bistro hadn't been an accident. Faulty wiring covered up by his father's company. His mother's death, Emily's mother's ruin, all linked to a decision buried decades deep. He loosened his tie, the weight of the truth settling like dust in his chest. The arrogance that usually carried him now felt like armor cracking. He poured a glass of whiskey but didn't drink it. Instead, he replayed the memory of that dish. The fennel, the lemon, the way Emily's hands moved like she'd been born in the same kitchen his mother once ruled. A photograph on his desk caught his eye, his mother smiling, arm around another woman in a chef's apron. He turned it over. Written on the back, in fading ink, "To my best friend, Margaret Ward. Let's open our dream together." The glass trembled in his hand. Emily's mother. He sank into the chair, the storm outside flashing white across the skyline. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger, someone standing at the edge of a truth too big to carry. He whispered to the empty room, "What did we do?" Down in Queens, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat by Jacob's bedside, listening to the storm. Tomorrow she would face Michael again, not as a cleaning lady, not as the daughter of a forgotten cook, but as the woman demanding he remember where he came from. Morning came with a sky the color of wet steel. Emily walked toward the Carter Group tower, her hair tied back, her hands still smelling faintly of lemon and soap. The lobby gleamed with glass and marble, too clean, too cold, the opposite of the kitchens she knew. Every footstep echoed like a challenge. At the front desk, the receptionist barely looked up. "Can I help you?" Emily straightened her shoulders. "Emily Ward, Mr. Carter is expecting me." The woman's brows rose, surprised, but she pressed the intercom anyway. "She's here." Moments later, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Michael was waiting inside, suit immaculate, face unreadable. No words as she stepped in. The doors slid shut behind them, trapping them between reflections, two ghosts rising in silence. The air felt charged, like the moment before lightning. Michael finally spoke. "You should have come to me before filing the claim." "I did," Emily replied. "You just didn't know who I was." He turned toward her, eyes sharp. "And who are you, Emily? The woman who cleaned my floors or the woman trying to destroy my company?" She met his gaze, steady. Maybe both. The elevator stopped on the top floor. When the doors opened, the view swallowed her. A wall of windows overlooking New York, clouds rolling low and heavy. His office was vast, but it felt empty. She followed him inside, the contract clutched in her hand. Michael sat on the edge of his desk, his voice lower now. "You want money? I can settle this quietly." Emily's laugh was bitter. "You think I care about your money? My mother died believing she was worthless because of what your father did. I just want her name back." For the first time, his confidence faltered. "My father's gone," he said. "I can't undo what he did." "But you can stop pretending it never happened," she shot back. A tense silence stretched between them. Rain streaked the windows like tears the city couldn't hide. Then Michael crossed to a drawer, pulled out a faded photograph, the same one he'd found the night before, and handed it to her. "I think this belongs to you." Emily froze. Her mother's face smiled back at her beside a younger Michael, maybe 5 years old, grinning with chocolate on his chin. The photo trembled in her hands. "You kept this?" "My mother never threw it away," he said quietly. "She said Margaret Ward was the only real friend she ever had." Emily blinked hard, her throat tight. "Then why did your family erase her?" He swallowed, unable to answer. The truth lay between them. Ugly, heavy, human. A soft knock at the door broke the moment. His assistant stepped in, hesitant. "Mr. Carter, the press found out about the lawsuit. They're waiting downstairs." Michael's expression hardened again. "We'll handle it." But Emily saw the flicker of panic behind his eyes. She stood, folding the photo carefully. Then maybe it's time they heard the truth. And before he could stop her, she turned toward the door, toward the world waiting to hear everything the Carters had buried for decades. The lobby was chaos when Emily stepped out of the elevator. Cameras flashed, voices collided, microphones thrust forward like spears. Rain dripped from her coat as she stood frozen, staring at the sea of reporters. Someone shouted her name. "Miss Ward, is it true you're suing the Carter Group?" And the noise swelled. Michael appeared behind her, his presence like a shadow cast by power. The crowd parted instinctively. His assistant whispered something urgent, but he ignored it. His gaze stayed locked on Emily. "Come with me," he said under his breath. She turned, jaw tight. "You can't hide this anymore." "I'm not trying to," he replied, surprising even himself. He led her through a side hallway toward a conference room. The walls were glass, the skyline beyond gray and endless. Inside, the PR team buzzed in panic, phones ringing non-stop. One woman whispered, "The story's already online." Michael's hand pressed against the table, knuckles white. "Everyone out." The room emptied in seconds. Emily stood across from him, drenched, trembling but unbroken. "You can spin this however you want," she said, "but people deserve to know what your father did." Michael's voice softened, roughened by something new. "What if I told you I believe you?" She blinked. "Excuse me. I've seen the files, the signatures. My father lied to everyone, including me." For a moment, the storm outside seemed to fade. The confession hung between them, fragile and real. Emily stared at him, unsure if she could trust what she'd just heard. "Then why protect his legacy?" she asked. He met her gaze. "Because it's all I've ever known. My entire life, every success I had, it was built on his name. If that name collapses, so does everything tied to it. The restaurants, the staff, hundreds of jobs." Her anger wavered. She'd imagined him as a villain, not a man cornered by his own bloodline. "So what happens now?" He took a deep breath. "We fix it. Together." Emily's eyes narrowed. "Together?" "I'll reopen the old bistro," he said, "under both names, Carter and Ward. We'll tell the story right this time. All of it." She hesitated, torn between disbelief and a flicker of hope she didn't want to feel. "And what about the lawsuit?" "Withdraw it," he said. "Let me do this my way. Not to silence you, just to make it right." For a long moment, the only sound was the rain tracing slow paths down the glass. Emily crossed her arms. "And if I say no?" Michael's voice dropped low. "Then I'll tell the truth myself, even if it destroys everything I built." Her breath caught. This wasn't the man who mocked her in the kitchen. This was someone stripped bare, no arrogance, no mask, just a son trying to undo a lifetime of inherited sin. Finally, she whispered, "If you're serious, prove it." He nodded once. "Come with me tonight. I'll show you where it began." Outside, thunder rumbled again, this time not as a threat, but as an omen. That night, the city had stopped raining, but the streets still glistened with leftover storms. Michael's car waited by the curb, black and silent, headlights slicing through the mist. Emily hesitated before getting in. The last time she'd trusted a man with that name, it had cost her mother everything. The drive was quiet, neon lights bled across the windshield, painting their faces in red and blue. For the first time, Michael looked different. No suit jacket, sleeves rolled, the kind of exhaustion that money couldn't hide. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. He glanced at her, then back to the road. "Queens, what's left of it." It took her a second to understand. "The bistro," he nodded. "My father rebuilt over the ashes, but some of it's still there, behind the new walls." The words hit like a pulse of memory. Her mother's laughter, the scent of roasting fish, the music of clinking dishes and unspoken dreams. Emily swallowed hard. "You really think you can just dig up the past and fix it?" Michael's voice was quiet. "No, but I can face it." When they arrived, the block looked smaller than she remembered. A chain-locked gate guarded what used to be the heart of their mother's dream. The old sign, its letters half faded, still read Margaret and Claire's, though vines had swallowed most of it. Michael unlocked the gate with a key that shouldn't have still existed. Inside, dust drifted in beams of streetlight that slipped through broken windows. The smell of damp wood and forgotten stories filled the air. Emily touched the cracked counter, her fingertips tracing the grooves carved by time. "She used to stand right here," she whispered, laughing at my terrible knife skills. Michael smiled faintly. "Mine too." He walked deeper into the ruins and stopped in front of a blackened wall, its surface scorched but still standing. This is where it started. The fire began in the fuse box behind here. My father bribed the inspectors to cover it up, said it was better for the brand. Emily stared at the wall, her chest tight. "Better for the brand, I'm worse for the people." Michael nodded. He kept her insurance money, used it to open his first Manhattan restaurant. Her eyes filled, not from sadness but from fury long denied. She could have lived. She could have rebuilt everything. "I know." His voice cracked on the words. "That's why I brought you here." From his coat, he pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed, singed at the edges. He handed it to her. "I found this in my mother's old box yesterday. It's addressed to Margaret Ward." Emily opened it slowly. The ink had bled from time, but one line stood out, written in delicate script. "If anything ever happens to me, tell Margaret she was always the better cook and the better heart." Tears blurred her vision. Michael watched her read, his own voice low. "She wanted your mother to know the truth, but I think she wanted me to know it too." For the first time, Emily looked at him not as an enemy, but as a man carrying the weight of someone else's sins. The silence between them softened, no longer war but grief shared across generations. Then a noise cracked the stillness, a car door slamming outside, footsteps, harsh voices. Michael turned sharply toward the entrance. Emily's heart jumped. "Who's that?" He frowned, tension flashing in his eyes. "No one was supposed to know we were here." The gate creaked. A flashlight beam swept through the broken windows, and in that single instant, Emily realized the past wasn't done with them yet. The beam of the flashlight sliced through the dusty air, sweeping across the ruins like a searchlight in a prison yard. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. Michael motioned for her to stay behind him. "Don't move," he whispered. A voice echoed from the doorway, calm, measured, but soaked in menace. "Well, isn't this poetic?" Michael froze. He knew that voice. A man stepped into the half-collapsed bistro, rain dripping from his expensive coat. His hair was grey now, his face lined with power. Behind him, two men in suits lingered in the shadows. The older man's smile was thin, practiced. "I didn't expect my son to spend his evenings trespassing on abandoned property." Emily's breath caught. "Your father." Michael stiffened. "You're supposed to be in Geneva." "I was," his father said, brushing dust from his sleeve, "until my attorneys told me about a cleaning lady who thinks she's a lawyer." His eyes flicked to Emily, cold and curious. "You must be Margaret's girl." Her hands clenched at her sides. "You stole everything from her." He laughed softly, the sound dry as ash. "Your mother was a fine cook, but business isn't charity, dear. She signed her life away when she trusted me." Michael stepped forward, fury trembling in his voice. "You lied to me. You built this empire on that lie." His father turned toward him unbothered. "I built your future. You wouldn't be standing in a $1,000 suit if I hadn't." "I don't want it," Michael snapped. "Not if it cost them their lives." The older man's expression darkened, the charm dissolving into something sharper. "You think the world cares about guilt, Michael? It only remembers winners. That woman's death," he glanced toward Emily, "was collateral." Emily's eyes burned, but she refused to step back. "You talk about people like they're numbers on paper. That's exactly what they are," he replied. "Numbers that keep the lights on." Michael's hands curled into fists. "Not anymore." His father took a slow step closer. "You'd destroy everything for her? For some poor maid who doesn't know how this world works?" Michael's voice dropped, steady as a blade. "She knows it better than you ever did." The silence that followed was electric. Then, suddenly, one of the men behind his father moved, reaching into his coat. Michael pulled Emily down just as a gun flashed in the dark. The shot shattered a bottle behind the counter, glass exploding across the floor. Emily screamed. Michael grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the kitchen ruins. "Run!" They ducked behind the broken counter as footsteps pounded closer. Another shot ricocheted off the wall, sending dust into the air. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. "He's trying to kill us." Michael's jaw was clenched, eyes wild. "No, he's trying to erase us." Rain poured through the cracked ceiling, streaking the fire-scorched walls. Michael grabbed a rusted iron pipe from the debris and turned toward his father, voice echoing through the chaos. "It ends tonight." His father stood near the door, unflinching even as the storm roared around them. "You can't erase me, son," he said softly. "You are me." Michael stepped into the open, soaked, furious, trembling but free of fear. "Then I'll start by proving that's not true." He swung the pipe, knocking the gun from the henchman's hand. The man fell back, cursing. Emily darted toward the door, shouting, "Michael, come on!" Sirens wailed in the distance. The neighbors must have heard the gunshots. His father stared at him with a mixture of rage and reluctant pride. "You just killed your legacy," he said. Michael turned toward him, rain dripping down his face like tears. "No, I just saved it." He took Emily's hand, and together they ran into the storm, the sound of approaching sirens swallowing the past behind them. By morning, the city was already awake with headlines. Carter Empire scandal, corruption, cover-up, and a forgotten partner. Every screen in Times Square flashed his name. Michael Carter, the man who'd turned against his own father. The footage from the abandoned bistro, grainy but unmistakable, had gone viral overnight. Sirens, shouts, the confrontation, the gunshot, it was all there. Emily watched from her apartment, Jacob still asleep in the next room. Her phone buzzed with messages from strangers, some praising her, others calling her a liar. She didn't reply. Instead, she turned up the volume as Michael's face appeared on the morning news. He was standing outside police headquarters, hair damp, coat undone, eyes clear. "My father built an empire that was never his to own," he said. "It was stolen from Margaret Ward, a woman whose name deserves to be restored. From this day forward, the Carter Group will be restructured under new ownership. Half of all profits from our restaurants will fund a foundation in her name." The reporters shouted questions. One asked, "And what about you, Mr. Carter? Will you step down?" He paused, glancing at the cameras as if looking for someone far away. "If that's what it takes to make things right," he said softly. Emily's throat tightened. He'd done it. Against everything. His family, his legacy. He'd chosen truth. Later that afternoon, she went to the restaurant where it all began. Police tape fluttered at the door, but beyond it stood Michael alone. He looked tired but lighter, as though he'd set down a burden that had followed him his entire life. "You didn't have to face the press," Emily said, approaching carefully. "I did," he replied. "You were right. It had to be told." For a moment they just stood there, surrounded by the smell of wet brick and rain-soaked ashes. Then Michael reached into his pocket and handed her a small, folded envelope. "This was found in my father's office this morning. It's a deed." She opened it, eyes widening. The paper was old, but the ink still sharp. It was the property title, signed over to Margaret Ward or her descendants. Her breath caught. He never filed it?" "No," Michael said quietly. "But now it's yours." Emily stared at the document, tears blurring her vision. "I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll rebuild it," he answered. "Make it what your mother dreamed of." The air between them softened, heavy with things neither could quite name. Emily looked at him, the man who'd once mocked her, the same man who'd just dismantled his empire for truth. "Why would you do this?" she asked. Michael smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried exhaustion and something close to peace. "Because someone once told me, if you want to remember who you are, start with a kitchen." She laughed through the tears. "That sounds like something your mother would say." He nodded. "Or yours." The last of the rain stopped and sunlight filtered through the clouds, falling across the blackened doorway where it had all begun. "Let's rebuild it," Emily whispered. "Together." Michael extended his hand. "Then let's start." Their fingers met over the old doorway, the past behind them, the promise of redemption ahead. 6 months later, the corner of 23rd and Juniper no longer smelled of ashes. The old sign had been restored, letters gleaming gold against soft cream paint. Carter and Ward, a story of 2 families. The doors opened to laughter, jazz music, and the scent of fennel, lemon, and butter, the same fragrance that once defined 2 lives and 1 unforgettable promise. Emily moved through the kitchen in her white coat, her hair tied back, confidence replacing the quiet hesitation she once carried. Her hands no longer trembled when she held a pan. On her chest was a silver name tag that read, "Executive Chef, Emily Ward." "Table 6 wants to meet the chef," a waitress said, smiling. Emily turned, and there he was, Michael, standing at the entrance, no suit today, sleeves rolled, a quiet pride in his eyes. He'd stepped down as CEO months ago, investing every resource into rebuilding the dream his family had stolen. Now he worked there beside her, part owner, part student, still learning the language of honesty. The customers applauded when Emily appeared. Some recognized her from the news. Others came simply because they'd heard that every plate here carried a story. She thanked them with a warm smile, then stepped aside as Michael lifted a glass. "This restaurant isn't just food," he said, his voice low but carrying across the room. "It's history served with forgiveness. My mother once wrote that the secret to every dish is heart. Tonight, I think I finally understand what she meant." Applause rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed, but Emily didn't care about the lights or the noise. She cared about the moment, the smell of butter melting, the laughter of her staff, the photo of 2 women smiling together hanging above the bar. After service, when the last customer left, she found Michael outside on the small back patio, the city glowing around them. "They loved it," she said softly. He smiled, resting his elbows on the railing. "You did it." "We did it," she corrected. For a while they stood in comfortable silence. The night air was warm, filled with distant car horns and the hum of a city still awake. Emily looked at him, the man who had once been her enemy, now her partner in both purpose and peace. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The power, the boardrooms, the suits?" He chuckled. "Sometimes. But then I taste your cooking, and I remember why I left." She laughed, shaking her head. "That's not a reason." "It's the best one I've got," he said, eyes soft. She turned toward him, the city's reflection flickering in her eyes. "So," she teased lightly, "do you still stand by your little challenge?" He raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" "Make my favorite dish and I'll marry you," she said, repeating his words from that night, her smile playful now. Michael laughed quietly. "You already did. The question is, do you want to?" For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. Then, slowly, Emily reached for his hand, fingers interlacing with his. The silence between them said what words never could. She nodded once. "Yes." Somewhere in the distance, thunder murmured, not as warning but as applause, and in that kitchen where fire had once destroyed everything, two souls began again, not from wealth or vengeance but from truth, forgiveness and love that finally remembered its recipe. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of dignity and family. And above all, thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul. And before you go, watch the story I leave here on the left. I'm sure it will also move you and make you reflect.